Welcome, everybody. It is my pleasure to welcome you to the 2020 Transformative Technology Conference. We've been working so long on this for you, and so you're really going to have a great day. This is at the beginning of the conference. I start out with my overview of how I see the world, what are the trends, what are the things that I think are really critical for the community to understand and for the people who build these types of technologies to really see and get. And so we're going to go on a little bit of a journey, and I hope that you'll be as inspired as I am about what this time period actually really represents for us. So we're going to go to my slides. Let's see. Okay. Let's see. Is it moving? That's live for TV for you guys. Sometimes it doesn't work exactly the way that you planned. Okay, there we go. It just had a little bit of a delay. Online COVID, right? So 2020 was not what any of us expected. Oh, it has a little bit of a delay, huh? So 2020 was not what any of us expected. And neither is online, right? So 2020 was not what any of us expected. And the coronavirus has really devastated the world, especially for those people who have had members of their families pass, but then just overall, depression and anxiety, the uncertainty and the fear. When I saw this, it really stuck with me. The CDC found in a study that they did in June that 40% of the people that they referenced had experienced depression or anxiety or both, and then really striking, a stunning 25% of 18 to 24-year-olds said that they had seriously considered suicide. And these are US numbers, but these sort of stats were happening everywhere. And it would be dishonest for me not to say that I wasn't afraid, that I didn't feel stress and anxiety. And because I lead a global community around well-being, people often think of me as happy Nichol and meditation Nichol and optimistic Nichol, and all of that is true. But I was also very frightened. And I was frightened for all of us, but also for this incredible older person, my mother's sister, who since my mother died when I just got out of college, has been one of my closest friends. And so in the depth of my depression and anxiety, I was inspired by a dear friend. So this is Tom Chi, and Tom Chi is a famous Google designer. He was the initial developer of the Google Glass, and he told me something really interesting. We were talking about the Paris Accords, and he said that even if every country was an absolute perfect actor, it would only buy us 5 years. And his teachable moment from that was that the problem seed matters. And so he changed his problem seed to be, what if every human was a net positive to the biosphere? And that's really important because the problem seeds that we consider are often the ones that either have us work from a place of creativity or a place of overwhelm. And so in the middle of my overwhelm, I followed Tom's example and instead asked, what if this moment where I felt so overwhelmed, what if this moment actually set off decades of health, happiness, and abundance? What would that actually take? And the answer for me was to redefine well-being, to really put it at the center of our models, not off to the side. human psychological health, not something that we get to, but really, really in the center. And so I thought about, well, from my vantage point where, you guys, I track trends, I talk to founders all over the place, I talk to corporates, I talk to scientists. And so from tracking all of that, what would it really take to unlock the future? And for me, it really comes down to, as I said, redefining well-being, but it's put shorter, it's committing to healing, committing to upskilling, and committing to expanding. And we'll go into this a little bit more. And so for those of you who know transformative tech, our big verticals are mental and emotional well-being, social and emotional wellness, and human purpose and performance. And so for me, this is really the same as healing, skilling, and expanding. And so thinking about all of that, I thought, well, okay, specifically, like that's fine and good to say those big buckets, but like, what would it actually really, really take? And this conference is bringing together examples for all of those so that you can see it too. This is what I actually think it will really, really take. And so we're going to go through these very quickly, and you'll see how it actually maps to all of the speakers that you're going to see today. All the speakers that you're going to see today. Be patient with me. Okay, and so we need new tools, and we need new ways to get into this. And so, a couple of my favorite products that came out today. One is Moxie by Embodied, and it's a robot that teaches social and emotional skills. So you're going to hear from them today in a dramatic, wonderful founder story. A few weeks ago or a few months ago, I noticed that Young AI was starting to look at psychological trackers. And so this is a fascinating story of things where, you don't think they go together, but it will. And then Health Rhythms. This is a wonderful company that is working on a depression measure device or a depression measurement, because we can't change what we can't measure. So we need new tools. And we also need new platforms. One of the things that you'll see, and what I wanted to show you, is that there are so many other vectors, so many other places where we can insert tools in order to support healthy human psychology. You're going to hear about neuroaesthetics. You're going to hear about cars as a platform for well-being. That's probably something that you've never even thought of might be a way that you could bring more well-being to humans. There's a lot of insight about what's been happening with remote work, what makes us happier, what makes us feel more connected, and how do we do it at a distance? Because even once we start to go back into offices, we probably still will do this. And then you'll hear a little bit between myself and Peter Hirschberg about what's happening with cities, and cities as an actual platform for well-being, especially with the smart city OSs that are on their way. And then after that, we need new opportunities for growth. We need new ways to see ourselves, new mirrors. And so, you're going to hear about the cutting edge of performance at work and at play, and what we can learn about human purpose and performance from athletics, and that tied to technology and transformative technology. We're going to hear from Patty Mays on augmenting cognition. You may or may not know this, but Patty's lab is like some of the most interesting things that are coming out about dreams and cognition and additional ways of thinking and ways of adding to human intelligence. If you go back to what lab at MIT, some of the most dramatic stories you've seen, it's Patty's lab. So you're going to hear from them, and I'm really excited about that. Then we have a really deep dive with Anil Seth and Stephen Kotler about the nature of human consciousness. And as you know, Stephen focuses on flow, and Anil's TED Talk had over 10 million views. And so this is actually the first time the two of them are going to be in conversation together. And then Soul Machines, and that is very much about, the human computer interaction, and, and really bringing I think, our emotive selves, but also eventually storytelling to how we grow and how we develop. So that's amazing. So we need these new opportunities for growth, and then we need new design frameworks. One of the things, if you are anywhere near this work, then you know that these tools are getting more and more powerful. And so I'm really inspired by Dr. Raphael Youst, who has developed a technocratic oath that begins to get at neuro rights and how we think about this data, because we have to solve the data problem in order to be able to really unlock the potential of these technologies for humanity. And then we're going to get into systemic change. These two speakers who are going to talk about how do, if you completely change the game, if you completely redefine well-being and you have that centered in enterprise and our healthcare system, and how do you really do it? These two people are two of the best people to have this discussion with. Mark Bertolini was one of the very first Fortune 500 CEOs to not only reimburse healthcare, preventative healthcare for employees, but also to do it as a payer. And so it's just his perspective with Jeff Walker has done a tremendous amount of work around creating real systemic change on important measures. And then we're gonna, then I'm, also really interested when we're thinking about, these new design frameworks, is inspired by companies that are really embedding concepts like love into technology and how they serve the people that they serve. And so, we need new design frameworks. We also need better online platforms for conferences, but we also need new senses, at a distance and also within ourselves. Like, how do we, deeply connect and touch over space? And how do we use technology to expand our senses of ourselves and one another? And so these are two amazing talks that you're going to hear and that I think will really inspire you. And then also, it's like we need new integrations. And so I'm deeply inspired by Epicor Systems and Dr. Ruse. And this is going to blow your mind. I think this device and his test are game changers, because what you're going to see is I think, an explosion of data that can be integrated into our lives so that our measurements can actually match our lives, and we can develop a greater level of human insight about how our bodies and psychological health is tied, because the software affects the hardware and the hardware affects the software. So this is a truly exciting talk. And then we're going to go into enterprise with life guides, and also a game-changing product, I believe, about accelerating empathy within organizations. And then we need new processes and we need new research. We have an entire lunch session today with Brain Mind, who has really innovated pairing scientists and technology entrepreneurs together to really sort of, get around what the founder of that, or one of the co-founders of that, Michael McCullough, calls the valley of death for research, the things that are not necessarily big enough for, massive pharma investment or things like that, but they absolutely are big enough to have a tremendous effect on many people's lives. So how do we get those innovations and that insight into the world? You'll also hear tomorrow from Iris AI, and they have developed a AI system that really allows people to explore the research that's out there and really understand what has been done, because, to the extent that it's difficult for researchers to see side to side and who's doing what, a lot of the ground that's been covered before, sometimes, the only thing you often see is, what gets a lot of coverage, but that doesn't mean there isn't insight that can help us develop more wonderful products. And so Iris AI has done one specifically for well-being, which is really at the intersection of psychology, technology, neuroscience, and behavior. And so really, I think for the first time, you're going to be able to look at those disciplines together and explore together. And they're going to share that with us afterwards. And then also Gallup, I brought them here because they have been studying well-being for over a decade inside of organizations. And so, where some people think, oh, well, the overall well-being, not just healthcare costs, but well-being is difficult to attach to performance. That's not true. They've done it. They've got the data, 10 years of data actually that shows it. And so they're going to show that, because I think one of the things that we're seeing is that, it should go beyond, certainly GDP as a measure, but, we're starting to see lots of people, including I think most of us saying, there needs to be another measure for human progress. Like GDP does not cut it on its own. And so I love what Gallup's doing, because I think it presents the beginning of a framework around how do we have, WALYs, well-being adjusted life years, as a measure as well. And so, with that, we need new partnerships. One of the things that I do, and the reason why, the framework that I present is mental and emotional well-being, social and emotional wellness, and human purpose and performance, is because they're actually all the same. A lot of areas where people don't think that they're working on the same thing, they actually really are working on the same thing, just at different ends of it, on different problems. And so we truly need, larger partnerships. And then, one of my dear friends who's also speaking, Mike Edelhart, in a conversation that I had with him a few months ago, said sometimes days take decades and sometimes decades take only days. And this isn't his quote, but he brought it to me. And if you think about it, November 13th, today, we're 318 days into a complete black swan year. And I started at the beginning of the year because the rumblings of coronavirus were actually happening in December. And so what we've seen happen so quickly, the decades taking only days, 318 days, is that, these are the trends, the 2020 trends. And I've got, we have a whole future well-being report and a bunch of other stuff that's going to come out to you. But what you've heard me say over the last couple of years is that, need, demand, and means are running this way. And so means is the technological means. And, getting to the place where we are today, especially with AI and, the miniaturization of sensors and a bunch of other things, those have taken decades to get here. So that means has taken a while, but it's at a point of compounding. What really has happened so quickly because of this is the acceleration of need and demand. And so, as it relates to stigma, as it relates to, a willingness to share data, as it relates to people, understanding that we really must solve the data sovereignty, privacy, and ethics situation, this has been accelerated in a way that I never thought was possible. I thought, honestly, it was going to take us 5 to 7 years to get to where we came in 318 days. And so what does that mean? It means you are here. This is the room where it happens. This is the Kairos moment. This is that unique moment in time where substantial change can happen. This is it. And so this is our moment really to redefine well-being. This is the moment where we can do this, but it's not just going to happen on its own. And so, you might think, oh, a virtual conference. I would ask, really think about it as the room where it happens. So open your mind. The belief that you can't connect digitally, it is in many ways a belief. But if you open your mind and you open your heart while you're networking and interacting with people and taking all of these meetings, then you'll have the kind of connection that will allow you to really maximize this moment, this Kairos moment that, in 318 days took us ahead, 5 to 7 years. And so my request for you is to meet 30 people, and bring your full self while you're doing that. For me, what I want to give you permission to do is that if you watch this conference, and you just watch the main stage from start to finish, I'll be sad, because there are over 500 people, who are deeply passionate about what you're passionate about. We have, a significant amount of active investors in the room. With the app, you can continue to connect, even if it's not on this platform. You have a couple of days even afterwards. So really, really meet as many people as you can. And so that's it. That's what's in store for us. We have a great day coming up for you, and a great tomorrow. And it's just my absolute pleasure for you to be here and to be with us. And so we're going to take a little break, and then it's just a couple of minutes, and then we'll go to the first talk. Thanks.